Hello, all you empaths. It is so great to see you all jumping online on the sidebar. My name is Suzanne Worthley, and for those that maybe don't know me, because we have quite a great crowd tonight of new faces and names, I think that's because my lovely helper Katie's been getting the word out for us, and I really appreciate all of you joining us tonight here. And I encourage you to, go ahead and act on that sidebar, ask your questions. I'll do my best to kind of monitor that and keep an eye on that as well as moving through the material. And I really, really appreciate you taking your time with us tonight because this is such great information. As always, before I do anything, I say take what resonates, toss the rest, and whatever, settles down inside of you as a truth, so be it. And if not, just modify it or dump it. Okay. For those of you that might not know me totally, I'm going to start out with a very, very brief introduction of myself. So again, my name is Suzanne Worthley, and I am a psychic, intuitive, healer, energy practitioner, and now second-time author. Thank you very much for all the support and all of the actual, interest in this book. And I really think that this free webinar is going to give you a little bit more information on what this book is about. I'm going to do my best to give you a really great synopsis and summary of what this is and allow you to walk away with some really tactical steps and tools for your own toolbox. But I do believe that the book is very important. I believe that it is something that came from my heart because I too am an empath. And prior to my becoming an author on this particular material, and even prior to me being an energy practitioner, I was not aware of my energy field. Back then, we're talking about, I did an interview today and I was counting the years with this gal, and I'm like, holy moly, it's been like 18 years of now practicing this trade for me, and it goes so fast, right? But 18 years ago, there was not a lot of information out there on the word empath. There was a lot of information on the word empathy, but we're going to find out that that's two distinctly different things. Now, amazingly, as a practitioner, I am finding people just flippantly using the term empath and saying, oh, I'm an empath, I'm an empath. And it's almost, in a lot of cases, they feel like it's almost like a badge of honor or a identity thing. And I think this is why I would really, really like to scream from the rooftops with this information, because being an empath is tough. Being a true empath can destroy your health. Being a true empath can exhaust you. And it is not a healthy way to live until we become what is called a confident empath. And that's what we're going to break down tonight. So, again, thank you for being here. We will repost this on a replay on my website. Most likely, we will do our best to capture emails and send out a follow-up email with a place that you can get the link for further looking at it once or twice, because sometimes this information takes more than once to sink in, right? But I do encourage you to find the book. The book is online on my website at sworthley.com, and it is on Amazon, and it's about anywhere. If you just Google my name, just as an FYI, this is what the cover looks like. It's a very lovely and kind of cheerful cover. So, Confident Empath, a complete guide to multidimensional empathing and energetic protection. And we're going to get into this subheader deeply in a moment. But before we move through that, I would like to also, if I may, do a selfless plug for my first book. My first book was launched in the year 2020, and we all know what happened in March of 2020, right? And go figure, I launched a book on death and dying. So this was a little bit of a difficult launch when the entire world shut down in literally 2 weeks because of, we all know what happened. And we were challenged with death, and we were challenged with the fear of death itself. Now, being the worker in this field, being the one that does hospice, death and dying, and works from beyond the veil, I believed this book was perfect timing during that horrible, difficult time of people losing people. But this was not really something that people wanted to discuss a whole lot then, because we were so media driven by fear. So I'm very proud of this book, and I'm trying my best to get some plugs in along the way for this too, because it got lost in the shuffle and all of my interviews got canceled in 2 weeks because entire New York and California got shut down completely. So again, this is a fantastic book. It is all channeled on the process of how we die in energy, and it is great for anyone that is a caregiver. It is Scott is saying I'm freezing. Is anyone else freezing? And Scotty, if it's nobody else, just go back out and come back in again. That helps from your end. Oftentimes that's what happens. It's coming through your end on the computer. So jump out of Crowdcast, come on back in. And anybody that's having that trouble, unless everybody overall is having it, go ahead and do the same. So again, I believe that this is a wonderful book for anyone who is going through a situation of, caretaking, assisting someone in hospice, but it's also really important to anyone who is just healthy and well, because we are all going to die. And so it's a great, great book to think about. So back to the one at hand here tonight. Again, thank you for being here. This is a very intimate subject for me because I, as a practitioner, find people in my office daily. And I'm not kidding. I can do 4 clients in a day, and 3 out of the 4, and sometimes 4 out of the 4, can literally hold some of the empathic qualities, because this is what's happening to the human. The human being is so incredible and so profound, and we are so powerful. And yet we have absolutely been programmed out of our empowerment and out of our wonder and our magic for so long. But people are waking up beyond measure right now. And being a practitioner has been such a beautiful journey during these last couple of years, even though things look like chaos and the world is falling apart and everything's insane. When you are looking at that through the eyes of a balanced and confident worker in terms of your energy, you will see, if you choose to, and everything is if you choose, because we're in a free will society here. If you choose to, you will realize that this breaking down of everything that looks chaotic and horrible and awful is actually a beautiful undoing of the structure of patriarchal boxes that we have been enslaved in for eons. This is a planet that is changing drastically right now. And I'm going to be doing more free webinars and more paid webinars very soon here in terms of what the heck is happening in this holographic universe, because we are changing at a very profound and astounding rate. Some people will call it the shift. Some people will call it ascension. Some people will call it waking up. It's all the same thing. It's just different synonyms for the same process. But this is activating the human body more and more. And the human vehicle, this meat and bone situation, which is the divine vessel for you as an individual of source energy, is your classroom. It is your playground. And I call it your sandbox sometimes, right? This is where you play. This is where you create. And I think it's critical to understand when I talk in these realms here, when I talk about source, put whatever God package you need to put on it, because source is just source. It's the I am presence. And if you have a God package where he has a pronoun, he's a he, he's a this, he's a that, that's great. Do whatever you need to modify the words. But when I talk in these, I talk straight source. Because to me, source is an I am intelligence energy that does not have a body. And we are gifted the opportunity to be a shard or a fractal of that design, intelligence, love, and light. And we are embodying that experience on behalf of source. So these vehicles, these meat and bone with organs and blood and systems like our endorphins, our endocrine system, our nervous system, all of our systems, these are beautiful, almost like a big fat supercomputer to monitor and drive us through our experiences. So when I write this book, the Confident Empath book, I wrote it in terms of that we are a vehicle. We are a vehicle of source energy, and we connect to that God source energy with what we call our gasoline. Just like a car or a truck, we need gasoline for us to fly down the road of life itself and have our parts working smoothly. And when we have that gasoline, we go to the station and we undo our little cap and we put that thing in, that hose, and we squeeze it. And that wonderful source energy comes into our vehicle, our car, and it fuels everything, gasses it up, things move along, and that's how we progress down the road. And thirdly, we have a tank that holds that fuel or that gasoline. And these are equivalent to our energy fields. So we are the vehicle. Our chakra system, which we're going to break down in just a little bit, is our gasoline entrance points for us to have life force fuel. And our tank is our auric field. Now, 90% of us do not grow up with the information that, hey, little Susie, when you're 6 years old and you enter this world of being on a planet, You're here to be a guardian of this actual planetary system. And oh, by the way, you have chakras and an energy field that are your responsibility to keep on task and field and fueled and safe and taken care of. None of us get that information. So sadly, we don't get it. We are traversing through this crazy chaos, and boy, is it crazy lately, right? In these vehicles that are losing gas all day long. And this is what the empath is doing. I was awesome at being an empath before I understood what this particular subject really was. Now, I want to start at the very beginning, and I'm not going to go literally through the book, but I'm going to kind of outline it so that you understand the content of this book because it's vast. The book starts out with the very most important thing, in my opinion, which is belief systems, shedding what we've been taught. Because most all of us walking around have been programmed again like a supercomputer according to whatever belief systems we hear from the very beginning of our incarnation. We even hear this messaging in utero because I do a lot of healing sessions where I know the person has been programmed in utero, determined by the way that they hold their energetic field. So we're already receiving messaging on what makes us safe on this planet. Sadly, most of the messages are I'm safe if I have a home, a job, a 401k, a savings account, a partner, I have status, I have money, I have things. This is not the true definition of safe in terms of being in the body. This is a programmed root chakra, our very first chakra, which connects us to the planet and allows us to go through fight or flight or feeling safe. This is a distortion in that first chakra. But for the empath, it also starts to create a narrative that we start to run, which is another primal wound of I'm not enough. There's not enough. There's not enough time. There's not enough of me. There's not enough of me to go around. I have to do this and I have to do that. And I have to become a human doing machine. This is the classic of the empath. And we're going to get into the kinds of empaths in a moment. But generally speaking, when I find someone in my office, I have what's called an intake for every client. No matter if I work with you all the time, we do an intake period. And I wrote this book because so many people sitting in that chair are doing the classic empath things, even in the intake moment, even when I've been working with them for a little bit and they're aware because it's retraining old narratives, right? So we are gifted as a human vehicle. We are gifted with this beautiful body, which most of us hate, by the way. We are not self-loving. We are self-destroying. Our looks, our body, our mental state, our emotional state, we are always bashing. And this is a critical time for us if we choose to turn that around, because these bodies are what make us so strong and powerful. And we give all of that away to everything outside of ourselves. So this book has a bigger message. This is about empowering you and putting your God source inside of you instead of having that separated, which is one of the primal wounds of we're always looking for something. What am I missing in my life? I'm not fulfilled. I don't feel complete. And that's because we make all of our source energy outside of ourselves instead of allowing the God source to come inside of this vehicle. So these bodies, these beautiful bodies, are an embodiment, again, of source energy. And one of the most powerful gifts of the human, because there's a whole lot of bodies of God source. We have bodies of trees, water, wind, clouds, rocks, frogs, bugs, deer. We have bodies of source energy in multitudes of ways, planets, stars, universes, different races, star seeds, etc., galaxies full. But we are a human. One of the primary gifts of being a human on behalf of source energy is the birthright of something called empathy. This is because we are gifted with free will, the opportunity to have what we call sentience. Sentience is a beautiful word, and what it means is that I am capable of feeling, I am capable of intuiting my own individualized feel in every feel around me. I am capable of understanding that that connection of feel will activate everything within me, including my mind, my soul, my body. And this tool is designed for the human to understand one of the most powerful things of all, which is the number one law of the universe, which is called the law of one. The law of one is a universal structure that tells us that these bodies are designed as one. Not only all of humanity is one, but we are one with every body of source energy. We are the clouds. We are the sunshine. We are the bug. We are that other human that we, bash and destroy. This is why when we get back on track as a human race with love and kindness versus hate and judgment, we will understand when we destroy each other and hurt each other, we're only hurting ourselves. So the more we would get back in alignment with this true empathy, this means I walk in your shoes. Empathy is designed for my feel body, my feel center, to understand what it feels like to be you, what it feels like to know your pain, what it feels like to know when you're sick or you're sad or you're hurting, or just as easy, you're joyful and you're blissful. My job as a sentient being is to be able to merge with that and support that and tap into that so that I can honor your situation separate than mine, and I can still hold space for that. This is the oneness. We sadly have lost track of that 100%. We sadly became very, very programmed as a human race and became very egotistical. Instead of being co-creators with our God source, we wanted to become creators. And we took this on eons ago. This is nothing new. This concept of empathing goes all the way back to the fall of grace, pre-Sumerian, pre-Egyptian, pre-everything, pre-Babylonian. This is a distinctive timeline trigger in our galactic histories that nobody talks about in the history books, and you will not find it, because this is when the human gave away their free will to some extent, and we created the nasty ego, the controller and victim program. This book goes extensively into that information on what controllers and victims are, and we'll get to that in a bit. But when this happened and we free will wise decided to override being a co-creator with God source and take on that creational capability on my own individually and egotistically, we lost the opportunity of one. And this created a separation. Now we truly have a separation. And we not only have a separation from source, but from one another. And this is what caused the energetic field and the ancient mysteries of understanding how these universal laws and energy work. This caused that to all go by the wayside. And then sadly, we built up a patriarchal world, which is very top-down management, little tiny boxes, control factors. We tell you how to feel, we tell you how to think, and we tell you how to act. No questions asked. So the goal of this is to be a human that reactivates. The goal of this timeline that we are in, called the ascension process and the shift, is for the reactivation of the actual human blueprint to come back to its angelic self and oneness with not only themselves and source, but with the all. We cannot do that when we're empathing, because what this means, instead of standing in your shoes, I feel your pain, I honor it and I see it. Now, when I empath, I stand in your shoes, but I steal your shoes and I take those shoes right off of you. And I walk away with your shoes and I bring home your shoes, and you don't get your shoes back because I'm keeping them. And now your pain is mine and your agony is mine. And that turns into worry, and that turns into my control of your feels. And these feels can be emotional, mental, physical, or even spiritual. I can take your true pain in emotion and mental rumination, or I can actually take your physicality, your actual sickness. This is so rampant right now because people do not understand empathing. And it has been thrown around like a word that's just the silliness of, oh, I'm an empath. Like we own something in a lovely way, and yet they have no clue of the detriment to the energy field and the physical form. And so that's why this is so important to understand this work, because you will change your entire creational reality when you start to be, once again, empowered in your own individualism, because then and only then can you be oneness. We cannot be oneness with the ego driving. We can be egotistically balanced in beauty and harmony and still be one, but it doesn't work the other way around. And I'm going to explain it and draw it in a moment, but there's really great pictures and breakdowns in the book as we go. So again, The difference is empathy. I walk in your shoes. I honor the fact that you have signed up for some kind of an experience, or you're choosing to create this experience of pain for whatever purpose your soul is learning. And I don't get to change that because I honor what you came here to do. But the empath doesn't honor that. The empath thinks that they need to get involved and change that. The empath takes that. They override it. They get on the path of the other. And this isn't really always done in a malicious way. This is what is really critical about this book. I was a profound empath for many, many years, and I had no idea that I was doing it because many of us grow up with narrations and stories from our childhood. And it doesn't matter the story because eventually I and only I choose to own that story and then feed that story and then present that story and then continue to live out that story. So there's no victimization here along the way, only within ourselves when we choose to listen to narrations and create a story, because we can change our story at any time. So nobody gets off the hook and says, I had a crappy childhood, or my mom did this to me, because, or my dad, or my sibling, because this is a personal responsibility game where we're at right now. This particular book, I really stick myself out there. I vacillated when I was writing this back and forth for a while. How much do I throw myself under the bus? How much do I really, really tell people that I was pretty crappy for many, many years, being that empath, not empathic, that empath, sucking everybody dry, because I actually didn't know I was doing it in a lot of different ways. I didn't understand that my power was being sucked dry by others, and therefore I was sucking others dry. And we'll get into the mechanics of that in a moment. But the reason this is such important information right now is because our reality is changing profoundly. Our dimensions, or our planes of existence, or our planes of consciousness, these are all interactive words again. The ways that we perceive reality. We used to have very distinctive planes of reality. We're in 3D right here in this world. And a lot of people right now, if you're out there in this world of spiritualism, we're throwing around worlds like, well, you're in 3D, but I'm in 5D, and it's very judgmental and it's very silly because in essence, we're all still in 3D. And our world and our planet and our essence and our consciousness is jumping around from 3 to 4 to 5, meaning we are elevating our knowing, our frequency, our love, our vibration, and we're growing as beings into more loving frequencies. The higher up we go, we lose matter. The lower we go, it's more matter, touch, feel, seasons, sounds, cycles, etc. The higher up we go, it becomes more etheric, meaning energy-based and love. So all of us are going through this process of changing right now, which is a wonderful, beautiful thing. But we don't get to judge another that says, oh, you're way down in 3 and you're in that chaos and I'm in, butterflies and rainbows over here in 5, because that isn't true. We are all navigating this all together, all over the board. Now, that said, many people that are doing their work are indeed experiencing more from 4 and 5 viewpoints in their own container. So we need to make sure that we are not being judgmental on another's journey as we progress through these things, because we're all in flux right now. But because we're in flux, this is giving the empath even more issues. Every time we're in a reality plane, we are in 2 different timelines within that plane, meaning every timeline has a this and a that. We are in what's called dualism. I have this opportunity or I have that opportunity. So that means we're jumping around in multiple timelines on a daily basis without even knowing this or studying this. This is why many humans are having really strange things happen. I keep losing time. I'm so exhausted. My body is hurting. I don't understand. I just walked in the room and I was doing something and oh my God, what was I doing? I swear to God, I had my glasses on my head a minute ago. I don't even know where that project is right now. And on it's going, because we are losing moments and snippets of time at a rapid, rapid pace. And this is only, by the way, going to get more difficult. So this is the time to find yourself in a grounded position and find yourself really, really working this actual vehicle in a very self-empowering way, because this is only going to get more crazy as the energies keep going up and up. So it is time for us, because we are moving through this together in oneness. And yet when we get scared and medicine in the Western world doesn't have answers for why are my bones hurting so bad? Why is my head constantly hurting? Why are my ears ringing? Why do my teeth hurt? I mean, we are hurting beyond measure. And we run to the Western doctor and they say, I don't know. And then we really freak out because, crap, if you don't know, I probably am dying and we just haven't found out yet. And then we get into this cycle of craziness and we are only dis-easing ourselves and others more and more. This is a quality of not only the empath, but just about everybody on this planet right now. So when we are doing this empathy, we are feeling in an empathetic way everybody's chaos, everybody's fear. In a collective pool, there is so much fear right now because our mainstream media will never do a good job at giving us the empowering information of energy. It will never do that. So if you choose, find other channels, other ways, other podcasts, join things like our Vibe Tribe group where we study this every single month for a very minimal fee. We have webcasts, we have information. There are places out there to find this information if you are truly wanting to study this and really bring yourself up in knowledge, because knowledge is power. And if we don't, we're swirling around in this collective pool of fear. When we're all in fear and this empathy that is our birthright is coming into us, now we're only more scared because everybody's scared. And this is when we are starting to talk about something called collective empathing. And if we're not able to go, gee, that's bigger scared than my own little Suzanne scared, right? This is weird. This isn't my Suzanne scared. This is big. I don't have that skill set until I'm confidently practicing this. Then I'm going to make everything in my life crazy. So we're in these ridiculous loop patterns for many, many years here. And this is why so many people are getting sick. So this empathing, however, is very, very detrimental to our field. So what that means is we can confidently empath, or we can do it without even understanding it. We can sort of understand it, but yet not practice it. There's all variations of this. So what that typically means is I am a human body. I am meat and bone and structures and organs. I have fields around me, and I'm going to use the general fields. I have a physical field in my energy template or my aura bubble. I have a emotional field, I have a mental field, and I have a spiritual field. These are what we would call eggs or templates of the actual chi, life force, prana, we can use any of those words, energy that is coming from source into my body via what is called our chakras. So when we're staring at each other through a screen, you see Suzanne's human meat and bone body. But actually, I'm a big giant ball of energy that is working like a supercomputer, constantly programming a projection of what my thoughts and my beliefs are. And I am connected to source energy like this vehicle needs gasoline in terms of the gas or the chi or the prana comes into my chakras like the little hole at the gas station, and we push the button and we fill. If I'm not full with that gas, it's just like a car. If I got no gas, I got no parts moving down the highway, right? And this tank, my fields that holds that in like templates or solid things that aren't really solid because it's energy, but solid containers to hold that in is much like a very good gas tank. In a vehicle, if my gas tank sucks and I have a rotted out one, it pours all over the ground before I even leave the station. And again, I'm chugging down the road and dying. This is how the human vehicle dies. The chakra systems in the auric fields become activated in birth and they deactivate in death. That's the process that is completely described in the first book, The Energy Healer's Book of Dying, to the extent of understanding how our loved one or ourself dies. It's an excellent book for that. But in this book, it talks about that tank mostly is the empath's best friend or worst enemy. Because much like the vehicle on the road, if I'm not keeping my gas, my body is dis-easing as I go. On my merry way, I'm dis-easing. And as I dis-ease more and more, we take that little dash out and dis-ease becomes disease. And disease does not always have to be physical. It can be emotional. We've got anxiety beyond measure right now. This is because of the auric field. We have depression. We have sickness. We have actual disease. This is because of the auric fields and the chakras. So the more that we can understand, we are responsible for fueling these and keeping these in good shape. the more we keep ourselves with health and wellness. So when we feel another's feel, that is different than when we feel another's feel and then take it and make it our own. So what I want to go into next is the way that I work first, and then I'm going to show you how the actual body breaks down. Because I'm an empath myself, and back when I was a very destructive empath, I had no idea that I was vampiring everybody. I kind of tell the story once in a while. When I was corporate, I used to do international trade shows, and I would walk through floors of, God knows, 50, 60, 100,000 people, or airports. And it was so amazing to me. I always thought, this is so odd. I would just walk through these massive amounts of people, and there was never anybody in my way. It was kind of like Moses was parting the waters. And I'm like, this is so weird. I never bump into anybody. Well, little did I know, I had an auric field that was like, I was your typical empath that was protecting myself with a horribly nasty auric field of tentacles and projection, like stabbing out, so that in an energetic way, everybody was like, whoa. And on a subconscious level, they would just divert just to save themselves without even knowing this is happening. It is such a fantastic thing to start studying and noticing, because I had no clue. I was just thinking I was being a productive boss, walking through the floor, being fancy. And here I was just barreling people down in a really, really unhealthy way. And I would do this all the time. And then I would go home exhausted, and I couldn't figure out why. This is some of the empath things that we start to notice. And I'm going to go into a couple of the qualities in a moment. But as an empath now, I have become very skilled. And so when I'm a practitioner, I use my body fully. I surrender with intention to surrender my essence and my being to absolutely 100% merge with my client during their intake and during their body scan and during their work. And then I 100% release myself after the work is done, because I will not allow my energy and their energy to be interfused after their work is done, because that is not honorable or integral. They get to go home with their own energy, and I get to remain here with mine. There's a whole chapter in there on actual advanced protocols for people that are like me and or any kind of a practitioner. And this could be somebody like a nurse, a teacher, somebody working in the public, or it could be a mom doing daycare. So look at that chapter in the book for really advanced strategies to learn how to merge and become one, and then re-emerge and come out of it, because this is a really distinctive process that is kind of a really cool thing to be able to do. So, but that is a little bit high level. So it's all in here. It goes from beginner to advanced. So when we are doing that, when I do that kind of work, I actually use my Suzanne body to feel what they feel. This is the empath completely. I can feel your pain of being abused when you were 6. I can know inside of my heart that your dad left you and you have abandonment issues. I can intuitively engage with the pain that's stuck in your left-hand gut, because it's on a spot that shows me that you had interactions with young women when you were in grade school that never got resolved, etc. That's how detailed this work can get as a professional empath. So to me, it is absolutely awesome and a beautiful thing. But I want to more so go a couple of the reasons why I know someone's an empath when they sit at my desk. The very first thing the empath does when they're coming to see me and they're not even aware they're an empath, maybe quite yet, is the exhaustion level. An empath that's psychic like myself, or a healer or a worker that's psychic, I can see in their auric field. Think of the gas tank again. I can see the actual gas tank is down to almost a quarter of a tank, or zero, or non-existent. I can see it. But so can you. Most all of us are very gifted healers. It doesn't mean we have to be a practitioner, but you can notice someone's fuel. You can notice your kid, your spouse, your partner, your boss, your neighbor. You know, especially by someone's eyes, when they are just not in there and they are not present. They are exhausted. Some of the red flags that are super, super easy for me to do, and my regular clients are going to giggle at this because this is stuff I hammer home all the time, especially in Vibe Tribe. Katie put the Vibe Tribe link right there. It's always on my website as well. Vibe Tribe people, we hammer home all the time the difference between the fuel. When we have this vehicle gasoline coming, we have love fuel or we have fear fuel. Most of the empaths walking around this planet are working in fear fuel. Again, fueled by belief systems that we do not understand. We're running automatically because we don't do the time possibly to go deep into them and discern if these are truths for me. We run automatically. We're like zombies. We just go through our day. So the empath will use words like, I have to do this. I have to go to work. Oh my God, I can't take time for myself. Oh my God, I should be meditating more. Oh my God, and on and on. So I should, I can't, I have to, I need to. These are immediate red flags for me doing an intake of anyone. And now I red flag that with everything and everybody. You cannot imagine when you get good at this that you will note how many people absolutely use the verbiage of, I have to, I need to, I should, I can't. And Derek's already on the side because he's a long-term client. He knows what we move you to is the love fuel that he just posted, which is I get to and I choose to. So let's just all take a moment, if you choose to, in your head and go, I have to go to work. The reality is you don't. You don't have to go to work. There's nothing about that that's a truth. But feel what that feels like to the actual physical form. It feels heavy. It feels dense. Now, the reality is you're choosing. So say maybe I get to go to work because I actually get to. I get to go to work because I'm choosing the paycheck. I am choosing the paycheck. I am choosing the outcome of what I can have for the paycheck. And Amber is saying, I choose to love my husband. I choose to love my children. This is a choice also. We don't automatically love. We think we do, but we do. And choices of love and marriage and jobs are choices that when we take this fully empowered, we also do not have the right to bitch about it or complain about it or whine about it or victimize ourselves, because that's wasted fuel. So the very first things that the body language is telling me on the empath that sits in my chair is there's not enough time in the day. This is classic for the empath. There's just not enough time. The inner feeling of overwhelmed. I am so emotionally overwhelmed. I'm doing everything for everybody. I am the one that is always busy. There's never enough time. I'm afraid. I can't go into spaces and places without feeling overwhelmed. I literally am the one in the grocery store, for God's sakes, where people come up to me in the produce section and tell me their whole life story. Why are you telling me this? And this is what happens to the empath. We do a class up at the Palmer House on this, and there's another one. Katie put the links at the beginning, but they're on my website too. We do a class, I believe it's August 4, 5, and 6, up at the Palmer House on this empath class, and it is a profound weekend, by the way. I've taught it twice, and it is life-changing. But it's funny because when we do the intros and we introduce ourselves to each other, oftentimes when we do the intros at the empath class, people are starting to describe what they're like and what is exhausting for them, and everybody's head in the class is doing this because empaths are classic. They all do the same things basically. They are all really uncomfortable with conflict. They are wanting to settle confrontation or avoid it completely. They would like to walk away from anything violent. They don't like things like TV that is violence, movie that is violence, news that is violence. They feel really weighed down by clutter and overwhelming things. They sometimes don't even like concerts or things where there's lots of people, or God forbid, the state fair, right? They do a lot of things like carry extra weight. When you start to understand your empathing, you will shift your weight because this is protection that you are doing on a subconscious level for your field, and it is unneeded when you start to understand how to move this energy differently. The empath is classic on overscheduling themselves. They are always exhausted and tired, but yet, and this was Suzanne when I was good at this, nobody's going to help me anyway because I can do it faster and better anyhow. I don't want to put up with you trying to do this because I can do it faster and better, and then it's done the way that I want it. So this is classic for the empath as well. So they like adventure and they like freedom, and yet they're controlling the lives of themselves and others for crazy reasons. And it is really hard for most empaths too, because they're lovers of life, like nature and animals. And yet they find themselves worrying about the cruelty of the animals and the food and the water and the oceans and the fish. And so this is why I chose to write this book, not only from an empathy and empathic standpoint of human interaction, but more so the collective and all different planes of existence that we're going to get into in a minute. But I want to go deeper into how empathing works first. So let's go back to the concept that, yes, we are looking at a meat and bone projection of what Suzanne is. But the reality is that, and I'm going to squeeze this over here, Yeah, control is very classic for the empath, guys. That is really classic, and we're going to find out why. So, when we have the human body, we actually are a human form that is sitting inside layers and layers of what we would call the auric egg or the template. This is multiple layers of colors and sound and frequency and light that have all kinds of things within it, but we're going to make it just simple by doing the egg because the outer form we call the egg. When we are aligned and we are connected to our higher source, our soul, our higher version of our God source, that is fueling us in our own individuality and keeping us collective because we're maintaining our God source fuel. Sadly, we're not taught any of this. We're not taught that this is a self responsibility thing. We're taught that these belief systems are I have to help everyone to be wonderful. I have to do a doing machine. I need to, I have to, I can't do all this stuff because I have to prove that I'm wonderful and fabulous. Instead of knowing inherently inside we are fabulous and we are wonderful. We want outside validation. But when we are searching for outside validation and constantly going and working and doing, our field begins to work like this. The actual auric egg is worn down again, much like a gas tank that has gotten really rusty and crappy, and now it's flaking off and breaking through. What is happening in this case, and this is detailed in the book, what is happening in this case is our auras are, our chakras are trying desperately to fill. They're trying to get the gasoline and the chi, but it's like gas coming into my tank and pouring down all over the ground. And it's just puddling all over the place, and I have none. Additionally, when these breaks and tears are happening, this is anxiety, this is stress, this is depression. When I'm losing it and I'm taking on everything else, it is a hodgepodge of energy that is circulating in chaos throughout my system and confusing my programming, confusing my matrix programming. Again, think of yourself a little bit more like a supercomputer during this session because my programming just got completely jacked. I am not on the right program. I have defaults going on. I have viruses going on in my computer. Everything is a jumbled mess, and I can't figure out why I feel like crap. This anxiety, which people are really suffering at profound levels right now, can be retrained. Panic attacks, feelings of depression, feelings of true darkness, all of this overwhelm, all of this, I can't stay in my body, can be retrained in the auric field. Now, this is not negating going to medical help if you indeed need it. I'm not a doctor saying don't do that. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm giving you information. It's your choice. But the more we learn to work that auric field and we release all that, the better. But when the empath is walking around like this on a daily basis, and especially if we don't even know it, what happens is I will go through my day, and the next person that I come upon, whether I know them or not, I will go into their field and I will break energetically into that field so that I can siphon some of their gas, so I can take some of their gas. And this happens at a subconscious level, but sometimes conscious. First, we're going to talk about subconscious. I maybe am worried about you. I'm so concerned about you. You're my kid. And oh my God, you're not doing well. And you lost your job and you need money and your wife is having problems. And oh my goodness, or my friend and she's sick and she has cancer. So we're constantly worrying about others. Look how this breaks complete open in my field and breaks into the other person's field. However, they have allowed it because they are also not contained in their field. So this is a lose lose. I break into your field. You then break into mine. And this right here in the middle is what is called energy transference. And we do it all day long in some form or another. Whether we are empathing or not, we are always transferring energy with every single thing we encounter. But the general empath, the person that isn't empathing, will drop it immediately or thereafter, soon thereafter. But the empath won't. It will be like an energy bull hit. It's like Red Bull. I am feeling it. I'm feeling good. I helped somebody. I fixed somebody. I took care of all those problems. And then boom, I fall over because I'm the Energizer Bunny that just ran out. And so now I got to go find more. And this is the process that we then move into called vampiring. I will need more and more transfers of energy, more and more transfers of blood, like the vampire, right? I need more hits. And this will happen all throughout our day. This will also happen in a more negative and nefarious way, meaning maybe it's that boss or that partner or that family member that's a gaslighter. Maybe it's that cruel person that overpowers you, that abuses you verbally, mentally, and maybe even physically. when that verbal abuse comes in or that any gaslighting abuse comes in, I need to, if I choose to get better at this, understand that this is a codependent relationship. If I'm living in codependency with a gaslighter or an abusive person, I am playing just as much of the vampire game as they are because I'm allowing it. And by allowing it, I'm taking yours. So it is a lose lose situation. And we do not understand this. Now, I want to make it even more difficult in that we're doing this all day long, but where my book does even deeper is it can go into a house, it can go into a tree, it can go into a chicken because we know that this is a chicken, by the way. It is an animal. This is the collective, just the energy of the all. We are empathing these things just as much, and we are not even aware that I'm taking it from land and spaces and places. So this is difficult. Someone is asking, what is gaslighting? This is explained in the book, but I will give it to you here. A gaslighter is another really kitschy word lately. It is the new hot button word in the last couple of years, but it is a very dangerous process, and it is very much about codependency and non-self-worth. When we are living with someone or experiencing a relationship with someone who has the capacity to mentally manipulate you into feeling that you are the one that's doing something, they are the abuser, and yet they have this unbelievable capacity to twist the story. And you walk away from the mental abuse thinking, holy crap, I'm the one that made him unhappy. I'm the one that created her sadness or sickness. I'm so incredibly powerful that I'm destroying everything. So the outcome is I start to think that I'm the one doing it because I'm being manipulated by the gaslighter. And again, it's a codependent because if I'm being manipulated by the gaslighter, I do not have my self-worth in alignment. I do not have my boundary in alignment. I do not have the skill set to say, absolutely not, that's not mine. So it's detailed in the book, but it's a prominent and really dangerous thing that is happening more and more. And it is being thrown around, that word, like really, really crazy. Many people are gaslighters. They're also the people that will string the story along. I'm going to give you answers that you want to hear so that I can shut you down. I'm going to give you answers that I'm never going to follow through on. I'm going to string you through the time to make sure that I just get out of the situation right now and then twist it up later. It's a lot of mental manipulation and abuse. So when this transference is going on, it's a constant lose-lose situation. And again, I really want to point out the profoundness of the actual world of the beyond is getting really big. But I want to get into that secondarily. When it comes to the empath, we have some general rules of being a general empath. There's 3 categories. I'll get into that, Ruth, and how we get it from the house and the chicken in a moment. When we get into the generalities of being an empath, again, because we're all designed to be empathic, the human body gets to merge with other energies. It's our birthright. But the empath, in a general way, will feel the overwhelm. I'll feel the sickness. I'll feel the chaos. Oh my God, we're having our whole world go crazy. Think of Minneapolis, you guys, when we were doing the George Floyd days and the chaos of the riots and everything like that. This was huge all over the news. We're getting pummeled with programming. My body is scared. And then a lot of it will just kind of go to our subconscious, and we won't necessarily go down every rabbit hole, and we'll kind of shake things off. That's kind of a general empath. They will have it hit them hard, but maybe they will get rid of it somehow or it'll just dissipate. That's generally speaking a general empath because it will kind of go by the wayside. That's really almost everyone walking this planet. So everyone needs this information, but more so people are activating their bodies more to become what we call the second category of sensitive empath. People that end up in my office or people that are gravitated towards this work are called sensitive empaths, meaning my senses as a human, my feel, my knowing, my hearing, my auditory, my taste, my overwhelm, my emotions, my everything, my senses are out of control. They are way overdone. So I can't go into that room because everybody feels scary, or I feel, invaded, or, oh my God, I can't sit next to that sick person because I feel their pain in my stomach. I'm starting to feel sick when I'm working with my dad dying every day. All of those things are when the sensitive starts to take on more and more of the attributes and actually holds them and starts to work them as their own. And remember, empathy is I stand in your shoes. The empath steals your shoes and takes them forever. Empathy is I'm watching that person die. The empath is taking home the pain of their dying. Do you know how many statistics of doctors die? This is actually in the book of how they die is how they work, meaning cancer doctors die from cancer because they're empathing all day long. This is ridiculous that they don't even understand it in the field of medicine. Because when we're in that frequency, it's a transference of that energy again. So this happens really organically, but it happens detrimentally, especially for the sensitive. We take it up another notch when we become what's called a psychic sensitive empath. The psychic empath is the one that is really being able to move into the things like the house, the tree, and the chickens more, because the sensitive empath is going into what we would say bigger fields, the fields of the collective, the fields of the bigger knowing. I can walk over a land and I get sick. And I tell really distinct stories in this book. Way back before I even knew what was going on, I said I was in France at the Bastille doing a tourist thing with my work friends. And I kept doing this with my neck. And I'm like, God, this place just makes me sick. I don't understand why I feel so crappy. And I kept rubbing my head right here and my neck hurt. Well, lo and behold, the Bastille is where they cut off everybody's heads. Little did I know until we were into the tour, because I'm so ignorant about history. And I had no idea I was empathing all of the rolling heads that were happening in historical history from hundreds of years ago. It was imprinted in there and I just took it on. This is what we do when we're a psychic sensitive. So I can feel the pain of the tree. If that's an area in the consciousness that I relate to, if I feel plants and animals more, if I'm somebody that loves the animal kingdom, my collectiveness and empathing can really, really be part of me merging into the field of that collective tree field, or the trees that are being chopped down, or the ones that are being destroyed, or the ones that are being hurt, or the empathing of the animals that are being treated so cruelly for our food, or the fish in the ocean that are dying. So the sensitive psychic on a collective basis can go into these crazy, crazy realms and find all kinds of things that they're taking home without their knowledge. And this is why the practice of discernment, which we'll talk further in a second, is important, because when we start to be able to recognize, wait, I'm feeling really sad today. Discernment only comes when that auric bubble is contained. If my auric gas tank bubble of Suzanne is contained, I know what's Suzanne's frequency. I know what is mine. And therefore, when I walk up to a sad that is not mine, I have a skill set in confidence that asks, is this mine? Is this mine? And if I get a no, I can start to discern, well, what is it? Is it the water? Is it the fish? And I can get really skilled at moving this energy. And this is what's the beauty of being an empath. Yes, on the side, Amber, everybody can be all kinds of empaths. We basically graduate up into them as we progressively move through our journey of spirituality. But many of us come in, as did I, as a psychic, intuitive empath right from the get-go. So lots of times we're growing into them. We're also growing into them in extensive ways and getting more and more tapped in, because the human design of the body and the system is changing extensively right now with this ascension process. Our feel centers are coming online, so we therefore are feeling so much more. And these timelines are opening up, so therefore we're feeling the confusion. And this is, so we're graduating into higher and higher levels of this organically. Yeah, so you can be all of it. So back to these collective things, this is imperative for us to understand. Discernment is a skill set, in my opinion, that we should be learning in third grade. We shouldn't care about the capitals of the United States. I mean, that's here nor there. I don't care about 50 nifty United States as much as I want to know that's not mine. I don't have the right to that, right? I mean, this is not my sadness. Because sadly, what will happen with the human is if I find sadness or fear, and I don't discern it, and I don't break it down that this is not Suzanne's fear, and I don't have a skill set behind it to work through this, I will let it run in my backside narrative on a subconscious basis. And this will be a recording all day long, so that when I get off of my job, I come home and I look at my partner and I know I'm sad, running somewhere, but it doesn't make sense. So I start to look at my partner and I think, am I sad with him or her? Is my relationship sad? Are my kids sad? Am I sad with my job? And I will create sad, because that's how powerful we are. We will create the sad to connect the dot when in essence it had nothing to do with it in the first place. And this is ridiculously common behavior for the empath, which then leads us into more and more loop programming of not enough, not worth, not enough of me, don't have enough. This is critical for us to stop this madness. So the empath will work themselves to death because of these belief systems. Most of us have a really distorted version on what selfish is versus self love. Most of us are raised, and a lot of us throw in that religious dogma on top of it that says we're supposed to help everybody. That's why I'm here. I'm supposed to be nice. I'm supposed to be good. And that's all wonderful and fabulous until you are actually using that as a factor of a belief that pushes me into the I have to do this. Okay. And so I find myself, and yes, Ruth, this is complicated to recognize and stop, but it is not really when we break it down. And that's why the book is so detailed to say this is a process. The moment you start to reiterate words differently, catch myself saying, I have to go do that. I have to go visit my mom in the nursing home. Absolutely not. I don't have to. But I have to be a good daughter. I have to be nice. She's sad and I need to make her feel better. This is all false narratives. You're making it all up. If you're going in there with an attitude of, I'm pissed because you're wrecking my day and I'm shoving this in because I have to, I'm actually bringing resentment to the table. I'm not bringing a quality of full love with no condition attached. I'm resenting that and running the resentment and stuffing it in my own field and in my gut and making myself sick because I'm not even aware I'm resentful. So these are detrimental patterns. And reason why we want to break this down, Ruth, on the side to stop it is it's necessary to change patterns by watching articulation and watching the field of the body and being present inside of our own vehicle. But see, the empath wants to be all the way out here, chasing everything and everybody throughout the day, putting out a million fires because then they're the hero. But they're not the hero because first and foremost, you're not really putting out the fire anyway. Little do you know. You're actually tromping on a lot of people's reasons for their own experiences that you, for whatever reason, felt like okay with overriding. Meaning, you're sick and I'm going to make you feel better. You've lost your job and I'm going to find you a new one. Maybe I'm supposed to struggle. Maybe I'm supposed to be sick. Maybe I'm supposed to be in a rock bottom situation to find my soul and myself in alignment. And you intervene because it's actually you that's uncomfortable. It is you that is uncomfortable around me being uncomfortable. So you hold yourself up to the standard of being the fixer when in essence, you're actually the one that's uncomfortable. So this is a lose-lose, and it's very important that everybody steps into, yes, everyone is an empath. That's the general status. Everyone can feel things, but most empaths take those shoes and steal them and wear them for the rest of their time until they get sick. So you don't agree with everyone's an empath? Well, that's fine. You don't have to agree with any of this, actually, but everyone can feel to some extent. A lot of people override their feel because their belief systems are think feelers. And I go extensively into that. If you're a think feeler, you do not want to activate your feel centers, even though your biology does have a feel. You override that by think feeling. And this is a very big thing empaths will do also because I don't want to feel. It's scary to feel. So it's way easier for me to think feel. And so we can generally feel things because we're human. We can feel things because we're human. That's what the empath can do. But the stages of progression are because we take it in and we own it. So I hope that that's clear that that's really different. So the sensitive empath will really move into overwhelm a lot more. These are the people that are really not feeling great about going to places like, they just don't have personal boundaries, really. This is when we start to lose our boundary. I am not able to tell my mom, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not able to say, I say to sometimes in a class, I have these awesome concert tickets and oh my God, I want to go to this concert. And I bought these a year ago and this is my favorite artist. And then my sister calls because my nephew's first birthday is having a party and the whole family's there. And now I'm guilted into going to the party, but I really want to go to the concert. But oh my God, you're the worst person ever. If you don't come to the party, everybody's there except you. How could you do that? And I acquiesce when I go to the party. Am I bringing a good Suzanne to the party? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Am I judged upon it by others? Sure. Is judgment a real thing? No, that's for their perspective and they can have a feeling. So these are the fine lines of boundaries that are really, really difficult for the empath that's in that middle stage because the narratives are always telling me I have to do this and I can't do this. So little knowledge about strengthening your field is there when you are that kind of an empath. I don't know I'm broaching a field. I don't know I'm stepping on someone else's journey. I just think I'm helping and fixing. Okay. So can you say the name of your book and how to order it? Yeah, Mark, it's nice to see you on here. Confident Empath, and it's on my website or on Amazon. So thanks for asking. So trouble being or staying grounded is a huge thing for the sensitive empath, constantly overextended and overwhelmed, fatigue and physically weak body, weak field, weak everything. It's vulnerable. It's just emotions. My feelings are hurt. I don't want to hurt your feelings. The sensitive empath is oftentimes the one that doesn't want to rock the boat. I'm the one that grew up in the family with that story of I'm going to take care of everybody because this sister was sick and this one was into drugs and I was the only one to make my parents happy and they were in the middle of a divorce. And so I was that one. And we carry these narratives and create these stories into bigger and bigger things in these empath worlds. And so I go into a whole chapter on what is your story, creating your story. And we do a lot of work on this at the workshop. The one coming in August will do it as well, where we actually talk to that narrative and find out our story, because most of the time our story is generated. And mine was awesomely generated. And let me tell you, it was a doozer because I create, and I tell mine is big in there, and I really do throw myself under the bus telling the story about I created a narrative in my growing up because my dad lost his business when I was 15 and I watched things be taken out of my home. And it was my sense of safe and security was lost. And I created a narrative that will never happen to me and I will always be the one. So I created a narrative and I explained in depth in the book how that creation of the narrative of being the one was an empathic move for me to budge in on every single thing in every single way, shape, or form in family and relationships and even work, to be that one, be that hero one, feeding my ego at all times. And yet it was exhausting because it was never working. So these are really personal stories where I share that I learned very deeply how really inauthentic and dishonorable that kind of measure is when we start to really understand people get to come down here and have a soul journey. They get to do things like experience pain and suffering if that is their choice from a higher service or soul or lesson in their soul path or free will in their personal path. This is a gift of being the human experience. When we're that crazy, out of control empath, we want to fix all that because then we're the hero and we're wonderful. But we don't understand I'm already wonderful and I really don't have a right to fix some of that. Now, this doesn't mean that I go through life like this and not giving a crap about people. That is nowhere close to what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the empath, when they are confident and skilled, finds neutral. They start to go to a space where when they engage in something and they feel something, this is why we want to find the place of neutrality, before we choose an emotion that gets attached to the thought. Because the moment we put an emotion that gets attached to a thought, especially if it's a programmed emotion, it will trigger a programmed action. What the confident empath does is I go into a thought situation or I have an experience. And if I'm starting to get chaotic and out of control because it's triggering, the true confident empath pulls back and observes in neutral zone for a moment to discern, is this really mine? Is this mine, or am I stepping over a boundary here? Is my boundary clear? Am I being taken in terms of the energy, or am I sucking something else that isn't mine, and so on? So that neutral position for the empath really gives us the breathing space and the room to be able to go, oh my goodness, that isn't mine. Now I can support this person. I can listen. Now we move back into what's called empathy. I move back into empathy. I can support, I can listen, I can hold space for you, I can pray for you, etc. So there's a piece in the beginning of the book too, which is very important also, that says there is a distinctive difference between empathy, not empathing now, empathy, sympathy, and pity. A lot of us that are having really deep experiences with others, we are actually working in pity. And it is really, really not something that is divine and honorable, because I'm truly actually making judgment. I'm sympathizing, I'm making judgment, I'm pitying, I'm making judgment. In a subconscious level of my narrative, I'm actually choosing to think that there's lesser of something. There's lesser in their choice, their action, their follow through. And the reality is, it's not mine to judge. I don't get to judge anyone else's energy. I don't get to judge their path or their program. So that's why this book also, about 2/3 of the way through, takes a big deep dive into soul contracts, as does my first book, by the way, soul contracts and Akashic records. So for those of you that study, especially the Vibe Tribe group is very well aware of what soul contracts are and how we work the Akash all the time. But briefly, what that means is many empaths, especially the really deep sensitive ones, are growing up in very difficult situations as children. Lots of abuse, lots of abandonment, lots of not being seen and heard, lots of having to show up or not show up, etc. And this is the overcompensation as we're getting through life as an adult, because what we're doing is we're trying to create the controller program to compensate for the feeling of victimization as a child. So controller and victim program is deeply discussed in this book because it's basically two sides of the same coin. When I'm a control freak, which most empaths are until they figure this out, I think I'm in control of everything, or I feel I have to be in control of everything because then I'm safe, really is because I'm trying to make up for and understand my victimhood from other times in my timeline. So when we start to understand from a very high perspective of God source, higher self, benevolent contracts of the soul of others who I'm interacting with, I quite possibly open my paradigm and my thought process into I'm actually playing out the curriculum of learning victimhood so that I can progressively move into rising above victimhood instead of going to the other side of the coin, which is controllerhood. So most of us miss the lesson because we aren't even educating ourselves in soul contracts as much as I believe we could and should. Maybe there's that word should, right? If we choose. So when we find ourselves going, oh my goodness, my victimhood was part of my process, I don't have to have controller mechanisms to make up for that. I can actually work in divine choice. I can find my free will. I can learn from this and rise into my self-empowerment. And that's what this process is about. The Akash is the records or the personal files that we carry holographically, energetically in our bodies and in our essence of our experiences in any lifetime we encounter and create. And these records are interactive the entire time we are free will choosing as a citizen on this planet, right? And beyond. And so this goes with us in between lives, etc. But it also carries everything. These human forms of our bodies carry records in our cells, in our fascia, in our bones, in our meat, in our nervous system. We hold memory. We hold experiences. These are our personalized files. And as we're going through these changes, in my opinion, as a worker, it is imperative we start to understand cleaning out these files. It is imperative for the empath to keep as clean out of historical files in my experience so that all of the new things I'm coming across empathically, I can learn how to discern and deal with. And I can be of service to not only myself, but this entire planetary existence by cultivating my skills in a confident way. Meaning this, if I am a collective empath, if I'm the one that loves the water, for example, so many of my Vibe Tribe members are water babies and they love the ocean and they love being by that feeling of the ocean. And yet they can go to the ocean and really feel great and then come home feeling sad. And until they understand, oh my goodness, I just took home the collective. I took home the collective of the ocean. I can feel the sadness of the fish. I can feel the sadness of the pain. And the better they get, they can start to discern that it's not my sad, it's actually the fish's sad. What do I want to do with the fish sad? I want to, if I choose, do service to all by moving that file of information out of my meat and bone incarnation here into what we would call the Akash. The Akash is the source library of all. It's kind of the God source of all in terms of every existence that is and can and would be and could be and ever was. So I want to move that information into that place and space because if that true feeling of guttural sadness or disconnect or horror that fish can feel that I'm now holding on behalf of that fish gets back up to the library, the next the incarnations of beings that are choosing to come onto this planet are made privy to that information. And they may indeed be the one that chooses a life path that comes up and cleans our oceans, that changes how we fish, that does something to clean up chemicals, that does something to process food differently. This is how we evolve as a species. But sadly, no one gives us this information until now that says it's my job on service of the all to work my human vehicle, move that information through on the behalf of the collective, especially if I'm gifted with empathing, and get it out of my system so that I can continue to do that job constantly and keep clean and keep removing the files. We sadly don't get that information, so we die with the sad. I make the fish sad, my sad. Now I'm sad and I don't know it's a fish, so now I have a sad relationship and now I'm a mess. And then I die sad with my messy relationship and the messy fish. I go back to in between lives and I karmically used to come back and have to do it all over again because I never learned the lesson. This was the nefarious loop of karma that was existence for eons and eons, which is now changing because these bodies will not be able to retain that kind of sad frequency. We will just leave the planet and those will be washed out in the Akash. But the cool part about this is if we understand the process, we can do that work while we're alive and still be here alive and longer and doing more service on behalf of the all. This is a tough subject. It's big, it's deep, but I really go into it in the end of the book and really get serious about how, if you choose to do collective work, you can do this stuff on behalf of the all. And this is what makes us move back into oneness. This is what makes the human experience so divine and so incredibly more than being an individualized fractal of source. So it will open your world to so many feelings. So Amber's asking, so don't help others, even if your intention and goal aren't to be the hero. See, and this is, and thank you for saying that, and I'm not bashing or calling you out, but this is what people think. This isn't an all or nothing. That is not what I'm saying in any way, shape, or form. There is nothing about us that is not designed to be a human expression of health. That's empathy. Empathy is helping. I feel your pain. I hold the pain for you on behalf of you, but I don't own it. There is a complete different fuel behind I'm going to own your pain because truly I'm the one that's uncomfortable versus I'm going to support your pain with a neutral way and I'm going to be there. I'm going to listen. I'm going to hug you. I'm going to hold your space in place, but I will not take that and judge you and make it mine in any way, shape, or form. These are two distinctly different fuels. And some people are going to have to read this book more than twice to understand this is not about not helping. This is about helping, but it's about helping with the right energy frequency and taking apart the intricate puzzle that is confusion in the fuel sources. The empath works in negative energy of I have to go do that. If I have to go do that, I'm going to eventually have resentment. If I don't work with my resentment, I stuff it and I get sick. And this only multiplies as years of that goes on, right? We're crazy people. If I'm still doing the same exact action with the love of empathy, I'm going to do it because I'm knowing full choice that I'm choosing to do this. Therefore, I don't have that resonating energy of resentment. I don't have it. I'm not victimized. So I am helping on either one of those. One is a negative way and one is a positive way. I hope that helps, Amber. Okay. And again, I'm not calling you out by any means because you're so typical, because everyone's response when they hear this at first is so that, because it's like, well, what are you telling me? I'm not supposed to be nice? That is such a human response, because the human response when they think bigger like this gets almost even defensive and wait, I'm doing everything wrong. No one is doing anything wrong. There is nothing right or wrong in this entire universal multiversal experience. Nothing. Okay. So we get to have cause and effect in any way we choose. So this is about individualized health and wellness. This is about being able to really experience life in a gigantic, huge, opened up fashion. You know, I look around people. I did an interview today for the book, and this little gal, we were talking about some of the crazy starseed things that I do, and all these things that I do off planet and get into really big, crazy experiences with paranormal, etc. And she's like, oh my God, your life is just insane. And I'm like, yeah, well, everybody's can be if you would just open up your mind and you're extending your faculties into places that are unknown. You know, we are all making our worlds so small. We are so small when and I'm not knocking Netflix and I'm not knocking anybody's lifestyle, but if our world is, I exhaust myself all day, I come home, I eat some dinner, I fall in front of the TV, I got the kids on my lap for a couple hours, I read them a book, I go to bed, and I start all over the next day. I mean, this is what the empath does. They run themselves to death. And this can change when we put ourselves first. It's restructuring that word of selfishness in terms of no, self love comes first. Suzanne will always come first in source energy, and God source energy will always come first. And I never knew that when I was younger. I thought my kids came first, my partner came first, my job. No. Source energy of my vehicle comes first because we are service to self and service to others in a healthy way, not service to self in a nefarious, narcissistic way, but service to self because it's fuel. So this is really important. Let me catch up over here. Katie says she struggles with it itself. It is a daily lesson. And Katie is one of my, I love watching Katie. For those of you that know her from Vibe and all the events that I do, she's the one, by the way, that's assisting me. Thank you on the Facebooking and all of Facebook. She started a whole new Facebook. She's got that link on here too, a Facebook link for people to talk about this empath stuff on my site, a little bit different than my personal one. I encourage you to jump on that. She's assisting with posts on that from the book because she has done this work so much in the last couple of years. I have seen this girl open like a lotus flower, as have many of the Vibe Tribe people, because they're willing to do the work. They are willing to do the work. Derek, who was on here earlier, absolutely blossoming beyond belief because he's doing the work. So it's all what you put into it, like anything else. So Corey is saying, once you realized you needed to shift, what changes did you notice besides feelings and energy? Oh my God, Corey, freedom, absolute freedom, absolute freedom. And it's funny because I have been a control freak most of my life. And I thought that I was doing everything. I thought I made my kids wash the dishes, for God's sakes. And no one makes their kids even wash the dishes. That kid will do it with resentment. We'll do it with pain. We'll do it with shame. They will do it, because you're making their hand move the sponge. It's ridiculous what we think. Once you start to detach from all of that, you realize that you've been living in a life of ridiculous programming that then becomes almost silly. So joy comes back. I mean, I laugh at so many things that I used to take seriously. Empowerment comes, my body is changing, my weight is changing, everything is changing because the need to protect and drive yourself to insanity completely changes the field. My skill set has increased. My psychicness has increased. My guidance messaging has increased. Everything has changed profoundly over the years of doing spiritual work. So this is big stuff. And again, I really recommend look at Vibe Tribe or some support group if it isn't mine, because the Vibe Tribe people are masters at this. This is why I'm doing an advanced class this weekend up at the Palmer House for this level of people and teaching them holographic universe information, because that's how good they're getting at this stuff. And it's like information. Amber is saying there's a limit to this self-love and self-care world we live in. At some point, it turns to selfishness. At some point, there's responsibilities in life beyond yourself. Absolutely, but it's again, watch the narrative. If you choose to understand what I'm saying here, it is the narrative of the fuel behind it. Selfishness and self-serving in a negative fuel way is narcissism, and that is not what I'm saying in any way, shape, or form. I'm talking straight up energy. When you're talking service to self and service to others, meaning service to self in a narcissistic I come first way, that is not anything close to what we're talking about here. This is a love-fueled service to self in terms of my energetic gas tank, not my actions as a narcissist. So at some point, there's responsibilities in life beyond yourself, of course, because the universal law is the law of one, okay? This is the law of one, is all about we are one. And so again, I'm not calling you out. I think you're awesome on the side here. I think that you are pointing out the thoughts that a lot of people just have in a knee-jerk reaction way, which is beautiful and awesome to call this out. And I am never here to tell you your truth. If you don't resonate with any of this, so be it. And that's awesome and that's great. I encourage you, however, to look at how your body is programmed. Look at how our bodies, as 99.9%, if not 105% of humans on this planet, are programmed in terms of the way that their bodies are triggering responses. And typically they're in a defensive mechanism because we don't want to be wrong. We don't want to be wrong. So yeah, it's very much more about the gas and the fuel, much more about narcissism and selfishness in that regard. You're kind of talking about two different things. Hopefully that's making sense for everybody. Alrighty. Anybody that has any other questions, go ahead and pop them on the side there, and then I'm going to move into just a little bit of the craziness of the book, if I may, unless anybody really is confused about anything. Hopefully this is coming through. This is kind of a quick slam dunk, but okay. So the other positioning of this book is, thanks, Amber. And again, take what resonates. Okay. So the uniqueness of the positioning of this book is the multidimensional fields. I am what is coined as a quantum worker. I have always been different since I was born. I knew when I came into this body as a child, I was connected to the galactic realm and beyond. And I have worked very diligently with things that are in multi-dimensional spaces and places that I don't share with a whole lot of people, but it's coming out more and more now because at this point, I just don't care. And if that resonates for you, great. If it doesn't, that's fine too. But when I work in these fields, this opens up your understanding into that we can glean energy off of things that are caught in, for example, the land. They are caught in buildings. They are caught in wrinkles in time, literally, quite literally. And this is powerful stuff because when I'm doing some of these crazy stories that I wrote in the book, I'm going to share the brothel story is my all-time favorite in the book, but I've told that on many interviews, so I'm going to pull back on that one. You can read it yourself. But the one that I think was also fascinating was I was asked to go up and clear a church. And this was a wonderful little almost country church up in the beyond the Hinckley area, kind of up on the side of 61 going north. And not knowing anything about it, I never want to know the story. I was immediately, first I was in the pastor's house, who was a friend of mine's son, and he was having a lot of breathing issues. And he was really, really struggling with bronchitis, and a lot of his parishioners were as well. And immediately when I walked in, there was a ghost of a young girl who was dying of actual chronic, she couldn't breathe. And it was like the kind of TB feeling, the whole lungs were filled. It was awful. And she was technically a ghost that was still in his property. Oftentimes when we have a ghost in that situation, we're empathing the ghost's pain as well. And if you resonate to this, great. If you don't, just listen. We will take on their sadness, their pain, and oftentimes even their medical condition, just like we would an actual person, because that ghost has a field in their energy that is still earthbound and connected here, and we can empath that into our field. It's no different than being by a person, even though they're technically not on planet in terms of their meat and bone existence, but energetically they are. So he was really struggling with this. So that was one of the pieces. I walk into the church and the same feeling of lungs was really heavy. And then as I went into the sanctuary, I was starting to see multitudes of ghosts in these pews. And it was super interesting because in this one particular spot in the church, there was stuffed in bodies of all the so-called dead people that were really struggling. And they were completely taking up the pews. And I told this to the pastor and he started laughing. He said, that is so interesting because no one, no matter how packed it is, no one will ever sit in those two pews. And they were in this one spot in the church. And I thought that was super funny because energetically we can feel elements that are ghost spirits and we don't know we're feeling them, but it doesn't feel comfortable. This is that general empath again. I'm not comfortable here, so I'm just going to walk away. The sensitive empath goes, I'm not comfortable. I feel scared and it feels scary and deadly here. So, and on it goes. But the psychic empath found this parson of sorts. These are all dead ghosts covering all of these people. And I thought he was at first hurting these people. And I'm like, what is going on? It was this giant pile of people and he was over them, almost like stuck on top of them. And I realized he's not hurting them. He's trying to protect them from something. And then everything came downloading extremely quickly, realizing, oh my goodness, what this is happening is this is the holographic story of the actual Hinckley fire, the actual tragic historical Hinckley fire that indeed happened right along that property and all the way up and down, all the way to Duluth. And the history behind this is incredible and fascinating. And I put some of it in the book. But there was so many dead ghosts here that were still living in the actual hologram of the tragedy. So I need to make this clear, hopefully in an easy way, in that they are not in meat and bone here, but there's enough of their density that they are still maintaining an earthbound presence and frequency that I can feel their horror, their pain, and their tragedy and their trauma. And that's what I can empath. So I can feel like I'm dying in my lungs, and I can therefore actually create tuberculosis feelings, shutdown in my lungs, asthmatic feelings, etc. And I can physically become very, very sick, which tons of his actual parishioners were. It was incredible. There was so many dead people that I actually, and again, I'm a quantum worker, so I can open portals and close them. So I opened a portal so that I could move the mass amount of these people through at the same time because there were so many. This was so fascinating because once I opened that portal, not only were those humans moving through in mass, but cows were coming, pigs were coming, chickens were coming, and trees were coming, and everything under the sun was coming. It was just, I can't even tell you how amazing and overwhelming it was. It was fascinating and fabulous. And it was terrifying in that all of this sadness and this pain and agony has been stuck on this planet. This is 100 some years ago. And so is the brothel. The brothel is a fascinating story also. This is crazy, crazy stuff. And I'm going to highlight another one very briefly because we can also empath past lives. And I have this beautiful client who let me tell her story. She's a mermaid in essence. She loves the water. She's a swimmer. She's crazy. She's just gorgeous and beautiful. Oh, that's super cool, Mark. You had an interesting one at the Hinckley Fire. Look it up, you guys. It's amazing. Anyway, the mermaid story was this particular client had this persistent chronic pain in her back. There was a stabbing thing. And no, Roxy, they don't realize they're earthbound. They do not understand that they're stuck here. So their consciousness is in the loop pattern of their time period, oftentimes, and they're confused actually. So this is why we need to be kind to ghosts, in my opinion, because oftentimes they're actually very confused and sad. So back to the mermaid, my actual client in a meat and bone existence had this persistent stabbing pain in her back. And when we worked on her, she actually went back to a past life that was so completely visceral and palpable and real for me in terms of my third eye. I watched it like the most clear movie I've ever experienced, where she was indeed an actual mermaid, which are beings that are not in our dimensional field. They are in what's called 2D. So they reside in 1 and 2D, meaning 1 dimension, 2 dimension, not 3 dimension where we are. So we can't see them unless we have that ability to get into that realm. But she, in another lifetime, was incarnated in that realm and in that body. And she had been harpooned in a catch situation, and they stabbed her in the back and they jerked her up on this horrid harpoon, and they had her in a net where her fins were being broken. And it was just absolutely crazy, crazy stuff. And so it's a fascinating story also, knowing that we can actually empath our own past life and or future life within this lifetime. So this stuff is insane, and it is never ending, and it's getting bigger. So that's why I wanted to really push this book with some individualized stories to say this stuff is not just people, it is everything. So Nikki is saying I had a small one too, looking at the mural. A small what, Nikki? Did you have a mermaid or you had a what? Can you pop back on there and explain that? And then maybe I can help you out there. Okay, and then there is one more thing that I would like to bring up that the empathing and is broaching right now. Actually, two things. We are working in timeline overlaps right now, meaning time. Oh, the Hinckley Fire. Cool. Awesome. The timelines are overlapping and interpenetrating so much that people can also get caught in multiple timelines at the same time, meaning part of my essence is in this timeline, part of my essence is in this timeline. Why this is so dangerous is because they're frequency resonances that are conflicting and different. If part of my existence and my essence is over here, and my other part is over here, my mental is here, my emotional is here, my physical here, my emotion is here, I'm constantly in stuck mode because I'm moving forward and backward at the same time, and I'm never moving out of anything. And I actually have had clients that have been in 2 different dimensional timelines, and I've had spaces and places as a worker where I've cleared interpenetrating timelines. There's another story in the book about an interpenetrating timeline that the people thought they had a ghost and they didn't. It's a fascinating story. So these are getting more and more, I don't even want to say common because I wouldn't say they're quite common, but possible. They're getting more and more possible as the infrastructure of this holographic world is changing, and we are slipping and sliding. So please be diligent if you choose to watch how your body doesn't feel balanced, or I'm way too stuck in my life, or something just feels off. Get some help if you can't do it yourself. Professional help from a healer and or an energy worker, chiropractor, practitioner, acupuncturist, whatever it is that rings your bell in terms of a modality, because it's very important that we get these things back in order, or we can get very, very sick. Same with houses and spaces. Your own clearing is, I have tons of information in the back on how to do protection and clearing. I have all kinds of things, how to do your chakras individually and clear and balance those. So self-care and self-work is part of it. People that do spiritual work with healers and such are brilliant in that we are the facilitator. We set you, but it's your job to do the homework. The people that are in my groups that really excel at this do their homework, and they do the diligent work of discernment and bubbling. They do the grounding. They are present with what's coming out of their mouth. This is why their world is changing. And I'm going to tell you one quick thing. When you're the person that's doing this work, you're going to piss off a lot of people that are in your vicinity. And I'm just going to give you a heads up on that, because when you're the person that has been the empath and been the one and was working in a negative way and starts to figure this out and changes up the way that they work, that perception that Amber was kind of talking about was actually something that happens to many people in terms of, oh, all of a sudden now you're just being selfish. Oh, all of a sudden now you just don't care. And that is not it. But you will project that confidence out of being a confident empath, which then mirrors their own weaknesses and their own inner worries and inner struggles onto you. So it's an exchange that will actually cause some rifts for a while. So be careful of this, because I didn't understand that years ago. And man, as I started to own my own power, did I piss people off? And they were starting to say, you have no compassion. You have no, you don't care. You don't care. Actually, I was learning that I care so much that I don't get to change you. That's what people are pissed about, because I stepped back from trying to make everybody comfortable and change everybody. And I stayed neutral. My mom would say, Suzanne, pray for so-and-so to get better from breast cancer. And I would say, absolutely not. I will not say that ever. I will say, I will pray for her highest and best, but there's no way I'm going to put my spin on someone's version of better. So as you progressively change and grow into your own self-worth and empowerment, the people around you are going to get pissed. So just have a heads up with that, because that actually means you're getting somewhere. So patience and patience, right? Amen. Great. Awesome. When I was married for several years, I would wake up during the night unable to move as I had such terrible pain in my lower back. Felt that I was being stabbed. Roxy, this can also be the fact that you are doing that empathing, pulling things from the collective field. Oftentimes when we are not being able to move when we're waking up, it is because we are half in the body and half out of the body. We call this the etheric cord. It is a silver energy cord that goes from my heart chakra all the way up to my higher self. This is where we traverse in dream state. And this is how we don't technically get lost, if we want to say that, how we come back into the body. And sometimes we're not fully back into that body through the cord. And this is that feeling of pain and or claustrophobia, being held down, etc. It's usually just ourselves. We can de-escalate the fear on that when we learn that. Mandy, why would a person be affected more by animals and earth trauma than humans? How can I not take on their pain and stop letting it consume me, sending it to the Akashic, anything else to get it out of me? Great question, Mandy. And I'm so looking forward to this weekend with you, because I always love yours and Carmen's, questions to broach this bigger stuff. In terms of that, Mandy, each individual that is walking this planet in an individualized incarnation has a resonance with what we would call realm that is their comfort zone. Some people resonate to the realm of plants and animals. Some people resonate to the realm of humans. Some people resonate to the realm of the fairies or the angels. Some people are galactic like me. So when you know your realm, that is your biggest and most happy energy field connection, that's your comfort zone, but it's also your weakness as an empath, because this is where I'll feel the most. So you will feel the pain of the animals and the plants the most, because look at how you can read energy. Look at your photographs that you take in nature. Look at what you do with the animals. So you're 100% heart space connected to that realm. And you want to, if you choose, which I'm hoping you do, get really confident in your empathing and understand my best work is to feel it to the extent I possibly can, disassociate from it, move it to the Akasha, and then release it fully from my container so that I can do another round of it. And that's really depicted in the book quite clearly. I hope that will help. Alrighty, Suzanne, so happening now that I am protecting my energy, right? So Suzanne was recently, if I may, up at the last Confident Empath class. And actually, she was so brilliant, she took it twice, because this stuff is difficult. And I'm not saying this is an easy book either. And many, many people that are really diligently practicing this stuff are doing the work over and over and over, and being diligent and being present and being aware and gratifying. This is how we move the energy forward. And so Suzanne was bringing forward some personal stuff that I won't get into, but the group was helping her there. And we were explaining to her, the more you grow, the more that it affects those surrounding you. And I think that she's so courageous, and she's starting to understand that this means you're really doing the work. And I'm super proud of you if that makes any difference. So keep it up, right? Okay. Let's see. What else was I wanting to say about one last thing that is getting very, very scary, in my opinion. I love that, Mandy. Thank you. And as far as lists of questions, anytime, you're welcome, Suzanne, you're awesome. Anytime that you're having questions like this, please utilize the forum that Katie's just doing on Facebook, because I would really like to make that more interactive and learn from one another. Jamie, how you move the info to the Akashic Records is detailed really quite extensively in the book, but I say basically it is only limited by your creativity. So for example, if I'm going to feel let's go back to the ocean. If I'm feeling the sadness of the ocean, maybe what I want to do is I want to go back home and I want to burn a fire so that it is the complete opposite resonance of the ocean. I'm going to put all that pain and sadness into the fire, and I'm going to watch the fire ethers and the flame and the beauty of the smoke go up into the Akash, and I'm going to release it from my body that way. Or maybe I use a cloud, or maybe I watch a butterfly, or maybe I drum, or maybe I do yoga. So the way that we choose to work the Akash is only limited by creativity. And this is really an important value system to the empath, because the empath, when they are not doing the work in a beneficial way, it usually finds themselves depleted in joy. And when the empath is starting to bring on the skill set, they are now finding themselves absolutely beaming in joy, because you're working in creativity. You are working in childlike behavior. You are working in imagination. And we know one of the laws of the universe is cause and effect, or like finds like, or law of attraction, right? So the more that I'm living in joy and bliss, the more that I'm putting that into the collective on behalf of the all, and the more it's returned back to me. So these are really beautiful opportunities for us, not to only individually move our energy and gain confidence and bliss and joy, but on behalf of the all. And I think that's always super cool. So moving to the Akash is about intent. It basically, when I write it in there, Ruth, it's about prayer. I say, growing up Catholic, oh my goodness, we did that whole, God forbid, no pun there, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. And this actually, and I'm going to show you something. And again, this is up to you as individuals. I'm not here to tell you how to do your dogmatic religion, but when we do this motion of the actual cross in this regard, we're shutting down what's called our hara line that holds our energy in Kundalini's source connection. And we cut it off right here in our throat, which brings us to our spiritual self. The true cross, in my opinion, should be more the indigenous cross of like the Peruvians and the Mayans, where we go like this and we cross at our heart chakra so that the body is balanced. And this goes through the heart chakra, which is the actual bridge. And it opens up the bridge of our body so that our spiritual self can merge with our physical self. And so the way that we used to pray was even symbolically so detrimental to the energy field. It would cut us off, and it would make that source God, that guy on a cloud who's our hero, versus we're of God and within God, and God's within us. So even those kinds of things are really intentional in my life now. I reprogram crucifixes all the time if I see them, and I turn them open and spin factor them into an openness. So my prayer has changed, and I write this pretty vulnerably in the book as well. I didn't like to pray because I didn't like the Catholicism feeling of it, because it felt controlled and it felt very monotonous and non-authentic. And when I started working hospice and understanding that when I move energy, that is prayer. And when I connect with source in my way energetically and allow source in and through, that is prayer. And the more that I'm understanding removing files of things that no longer serve me in my energetic supercomputer body, and bringing them back to that storehouse of the biggest supercomputer of all, which is God source, that is all about intention. So yes, it is intent on moving the information so that it comes to the place where it belongs. It's like the coolest book of all, you guys. If we all stole the coolest book of all and never put it back in the library, nobody gets to learn from it. And we die with the coolest book of all, and it sits there and it rots, right? This is putting all of the really important good, bad, and ugly, and especially the ugly, into the Akash so that the new incarnations can come in, the new beings, new bodies, the new thought forms can come in and fix our world. That's what this is about. So thanks, Katie is putting all the stuff on the side for you if you choose to find it on the Facebook. It's new and it's awesome. Lastly, I would like to round down with some stuff that I did not write in the book because at that particular time, that wasn't part of what I was wanting to cover. But since then, this has taken such a fast leap. And I do some not individualized, but event training on this. And this will be part of this coming weekend for the advanced group. AI is becoming such a big thing, and this is not something that we even equate with being an empath. And I'm here to tell you that the empath is very susceptible to artificial intelligence. And we are being very tested and tricked right now. We are being led down many dangerous, potentially extremely dangerous pathways into possible transhumanism in a lot of different ways. This can be looked at like conspiracy theories. This can be looked at like you're a nut. This can be looked at like a whole lot of things, but it is actually a very real thing that has been around, not new, since the beginning of time. And the actual AI was in control way back pre-Babylonian, pre-Egyptian, pre-Sumerian, in terms of the nefarious and dark agendas of the controller off-planet factions. And I'm not going to get into a whole galactic history on here. We might do that on a webinar sometime. But AI is becoming very tricky, and it is something that we will sense in our bodies, and we will be pummeled with sound, light, frequency, resonance, vibration, which is actually programmed information on an ongoing basis. It is in our televisions, it is in our music, it is in our movies, it is in our newscasts, it is absolutely everywhere. It is in our games, it is in our children's video games. It is everywhere and in anything. And this can be great and it can be awesome because technology is AI, and it can be very organic, like a God source as well, but it can also be nefarious and dark and programmed. So what the body wants to do when they're an empath, and I'm just going to slightly cover this, is the body of an empath that gets to the point of where we drew the picture with holes, with nothing connected, with I'm not connected to my feel center. That body is vulnerable more than anything to that AI frequency, because it's like something flying in your window. If you don't have a screen on and you are sitting out in the middle of the woods and you can't figure out why your house in the morning is full of bats and raccoons, then you're kind of ignorant, and that you should have maybe closed the window or put the screen on. When our tank is so completely open and we are in this continuum of exponentially growing AI resonances that are nefariously programmed for us, if we're not understanding that, at least with some semblance of clarity, and doing the protection work to say this in and of itself is a reason that I want a clear aura and a clear and contained tank, okay, is because it'll drop in and we will be told something by a sound. And this is why we're seeing such horror and trauma in our worlds. This is why people are snapping a gasket. This is like one day, I don't know, we thought that he was a great neighbor, and the next day he's like killing half of the neighborhood. This stuff is crazy because we do not understand how we are being used as almost like puppets and kind of like prototypes, and let's see if this will work and let's try that. There's so much going on out there in the world of the unknown that there's no way we can know it. Just be aware of your own field. Command your sovereignty, command your freedom, command it from the paranormal, command it from the dark agendas, the nefarious things that are coming out of the earth that are changing right now, the dark forces that have been trapped for eons. All of this is a playing ground out there to not scare you, but to assist you in thinking how important this truly is. And you are the powerful one. I want to make this more than clear. Your body and being in your body is 100% the power. The God source, for the people that keep it outside of themselves, that is still removing the source of God to something outside of me is going to protect me. When we bring God source inside of us and are of God, I am that God expression. I am a fractalization. I'm not the whole, I am that fractal. But when the power relies within, I have every ability to call out what we call universal law, which is the actual structure of creational reality. And I get to, when I know this and believe this, command consent or no consent, always. And it is law. Any nefarious darkness, any program, any AI, any dark alien, any bad demon, I don't care what silly subject or label you want to put towards this, the minute that you call no to consent, it has to 100% accommodate you, as long as you are in full alignment of that ownership. So I do not consent is the power that you hold inside of your vehicle when you are activated. And no, that does not resonate for me. And I don't care if it's a newscast telling you that you're all going to die from such and such happening right now, and you have to do this and this to not die, or you can't do this, or you need to go over here. If your body is saying hell no, you get to, by universal law, say, I do not consent. And the energetics will have to leave. And I do it all the time. So, our protection mechanisms, I'm just going to run through these very quickly at the end. Being in the body, being in the feel center, connected to my own frequency. The best way to do it is to ground and bubble. There is a full technique on not only the back of the book that we're very soon going to be putting on meditations for sale. The whole book's meditations will be on sale soon, within the next month or so on my website. But for now, there's a small version of it on my current website homepage that says free meditation on the bottom with a black button. It's the simple ground and bubble. And the one that we'll be doing for the book is a little bit more intensive. It's written in the back of the book. There's also something called the 12D Shield under a YouTube of a gal named Lisa Renee, Renee, and that is a very extensive visual for a ground and bubble technique on all 12 dimensions. And sometimes people need a visual to help them. So I trained myself years and years ago, multiple times a day for 2 weeks straight. I did it 3 times a day until I understood absolutely what that felt like. And so I have worked my bubble every day in some way, shape, or form since. And that's been years and years. So that's critical. Number one is the ground and the bubble. Number two, when you are having space where you're working, whether it is workspace, whether it is home space, whether it is sacred space or not, it is important if you choose to lock down your space, especially when you're doing work above and beyond the so-called normal. And so if you're a Vibe Tribe member, you will see on our interactive websites when I'm teaching really big stuff, we will lock down our space as individuals and as a collective, and we release the space. I did my own version of it on behalf of this before, and I will release it on behalf of this after, so that we are not hijacked or jumped in terms of, again, messaging, programming, signaling, anything that doesn't serve us. You can do this lockdown. We call it a sacred circle. So you can use the elements of north, south, east, west, above and below. You can use the archangels or the elements themselves. There's a multitude of ways that you can choose to do sacred circles. I do them all the time. I do them every day, all throughout my day as I work in between each client. And then I cut cords. The cord cutting is a technique that's in the book also. And it is simple, 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 but it will change your life. And this is really something that becomes organic and very natural, because you'll just start to be doing this because that's how valuable your body is. So these are very simple summaries of simple techniques. And again, anything you do, if it resonates for you and it's your truth, awesome. Anything I say, if it doesn't resonate, doesn't have to. It's up to us to find that creative outlet so that we own this stuff and that we start to share and we start to hold our own version of truth. This is what the empath struggles so hard with. I want to be right. I want to be seen as that one. And I want you to know you're already the one. You don't have to kill yourself by doing. You get to be a being. And somebody asked me what I got out of it long term. Oh my gosh. I don't even know how to articulate the feeling of I just don't care. And it isn't a bad thing. This is a beautiful thing. It's I don't get to care. I don't get to dishonor you by twisting things to pretend like I care, which exhausts everything. That's the best freedom right there. There's a non-caring, which means I actually care so much that I'm stepping into neutral. And that has been the biggest gift of my journey. And, just because I do this 24/7, write the books and teach the classes doesn't mean I don't struggle. I mean, I have my own issues that I'm dealing with also. And I'm very, very blessed for my Vibe Tribe membership, which I encourage all of you to consider doing. It's only $33 a month, and you get tons. You get, a monthly theme. You get absolutely information. You get energy reports, meet memos, individualized meditations, music, prayers, webcasts. I mean, it's crazy what you get for $33 a month. So please consider joining us. The bigger the group, the better. But if not, at least check out the Facebook forum, because I'd really like to hear from you and do more for you. So anybody else, any last things? Other than that, I'm going to zero down unless there's something that's been really kind of hanging on somebody on the side. I'll just give you one pop of a moment. All righty, cool. Thank you again. I appreciate your time and your commitment to yourself and your health and your wellness. Check out the book. Like I said, I am very proud of this one. Please share it, please. And anybody that knows, Oprah Winfrey or Good Morning America, just give them a holler and let them know, right? Thanks, guys. Until next Cosmic Hugs. Bye-bye.